Hello, and welcome to the Let Them Live podcast. I'm Emily Burning, your host, and also the president and co-founder of Let Them Live. We bring you interviews with unsung heroes and inspiring individuals who are in the fight to save babies, mothers, and fathers from abortion. Our goal is to amplify their voices and bring their stories to the forefront, shedding light on the incredible work they do and the lives they touch. This is more than just a podcast. It's a platform that allows everyone to share their pro-life stories and inspire us to passionately continue advocating for life. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Let Them Live podcast. My name is Emily Burning. I am the co-founder and president of Let Them Live, as well as the host of the Let Them Live podcast, where we try to just highlight wonderful people that are doing amazing things in the movement and making change and have amazing pro-life stories. So I thought there was no one better than Dr. Christina Francis, who is a good friend of mine, as well as just a mover and shaker in the pro-life movement and just a major voice for women and their children. Welcome, Dr. Francis. You are I'm going to mess your title up, Executive Director of AAPLOG.
Yeah, CEO, but same thing.
CEO. That's right. Okay. That's right. You're the head lady. You're the boss in charge. You run the shows. Yeah. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just dive right into some of the really meaty stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Emily, so much for having me on. I'm sure we're going to get into this probably a little bit, but I've known Emily for a long time. She volunteered with AAPLOG years and years ago. So it's really fun to be here with you today. And as you said, I'm CEO at AAPLOG, the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs, but I'm also a board certified OBGYN. I live and work in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's another connection that Emily and I have. And I work for the last 7 years. I've worked as an OB hospitalist, which means that I just take care of women in the hospital, not as outpatients any longer. I used to do that. But because I do, that means that I take care of high and low risk pregnancies. I do deliveries, take care of women who are hospitalized with complications of their pregnancy, and also see women in the emergency room who are having either obstetric or gynecologic emergencies that need to be treated. And so really fun. It's a lot right now. It's 2 full-time jobs, but it's really wonderful because not only am I getting to work on behalf of not only my patients, the women and children that I'm taking care of either in the hospital or in the work that AAPLOG does, but also work on behalf of other physicians and medical professionals who, like myself, desire to practice life-affirming medicine. And so I know we're going to get into talking about what it is that we do.
We're going to get into all the good stuff. And I'm so excited because, like I mentioned before we hit record, being a physician and saying that you're pro-life, and not just saying that, but backing your stance up of women deserve better than abortion and abortion hurts women with your medical degree is such a big thing, because I feel like so many people want that credential behind their stance. And so I think it's really amazing that you're using your medical degree to further this movement. What, to go way back, I'm sure, but what kind of motivated you to even become a doctor in the first place, and specifically in OBGYN?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't choose medicine until my senior year of high school. But what I realized was that I loved the sciences, and I had always done well in that in school and enjoyed doing that. But I realized that I wouldn't like just doing that without a personal interaction. And I grew up in an inner city ministry. My parents were the directors there. And so I really saw early on in life the value of helping people, serving people. And so medicine then just seemed like a good way to me of combining those two loves, of combining the love of science and scientific inquiry with helping people. And that's what made me choose medicine. And then what made me choose OBGYN, it was actually not even a thought of mine when I started medical school. I wanted to do medical missions when I finished medical school. And so I was really thinking about more general things like family medicine or internal medicine, pediatrics, something like that. And then my second year of medical school, I was following a family medicine doctor and went with him to the hospital to watch him deliver one of his patients. And it was the first delivery I'd experienced as a medical student. And I was standing in the back of the delivery room and watching this woman who I didn't know, I'd never met her before, deliver. And as that baby delivered, I just found myself crying. I thought it was one of the most beautiful and miraculous things that I had ever seen. And this older, seasoned labor and delivery nurse leaned over to me. She was waiting to, what we call baby nurse. She was waiting to get the baby at the warmer. And she leaned over to me and she said, "Oh, honey, if this makes you cry, you need to do this for a living." And I know, I wish so many times that I could go back and find her so that she would know that one thing that she said that she probably didn't even think about, give another thought after that, that it really did change the course of my life, because it really got me thinking, maybe I should consider doing this. And then as I pursued my clinical rotations through the end of medical school, I realized that I really did love OBGYN. My favorite part is delivering babies, but I also love getting to be a part of women's lives at really vulnerable times in their life, whether it be a very happy time, which oftentimes it is, or a very devastating time. I think that this field of medicine, many fields of medicine touch on very vulnerable aspects of people's lives and things like that. But I just think that this field is so unique, and that we as OBGYNs get a really special opportunity to interact with our patients at inflection points in their life and really have the opportunity to leave a lasting impact. And I've never regretted that decision. I can't imagine doing anything else.
I think that's so beautiful too. And literally bringing life into this world. What a crazy thing. I remember, when I wanted to be an OBGYN and I had, taken MCATs and all that stuff. And I saw, I went and I saw a C-section and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a child here. Oh my gosh, this is a baby. It didn't really fully hit. So it's amazing that you had that calling and then you followed it. And now what you're doing for others, not just in your practice, but through AAPLOG. So on the pro-life side of things, have you always been pro-life? Was that something that kind of came about when you were, in medical school, or what's your pro-life background and how does that kind of play into you being a doctor?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home and would have always considered myself pro-life. My mom, after she left from being the director of that inner city ministry, went to work for Right to Life of Southwest Indiana. And I was always surrounded by the pro-life issue, and the church that I grew up in would talk about it sometimes. I think like most evangelical churches, unfortunately, it wasn't talked about really consistently, but I definitely would have considered myself pro-life. But I don't know, honestly, that even through residency, that if someone had really challenged me hard on my pro-life position, I don't know that I would have defended it very well, honestly. I just hadn't taken the time to really learn solid apologetics when it comes to the life issue, or even really do a deep soul search as to why I was pro-life. And so that didn't really come about actually until I was out in practice. I had been practicing in Kenya and had come back to the States for a couple of years with the plan then to return to Kenya long-term after that 2-year stint in the States. And during that time, my best friend, who's like a sister to me, was activated in the pro-life movement through a 40 Days for Life event at her church. And she called me one day. She had started listening to a lot of things about the life issue and reading a lot of things. And she had been exposed or introduced to Scott Klusendorf and his just way of defending the pro-life position. And so she called me one day and she said, "Christina, I need to talk to you." And she said, "You're a woman, you're an OBGYN, you're a Christian, and you say that you're pro-life, but I don't think you're doing enough. And I think you need to be doing more." Yeah.
That's a real friend.
She is a real friend. That's right. I know. I actually, every time I tell this story, I say, it wasn't necessarily like what I wanted to hear in that moment. And I bristled, who are you to tell me that I need to be doing more, sort of thing. But I always say everybody should have a friend like that in their life who's willing to look. And the reason she said it to me wasn't because she was trying to condemn me for not having done more or anything like that. She recognized in me things I didn't even recognize in myself, that maybe I had been uniquely positioned in a way to be able to address this issue, and that I had a voice that could be used in a way that she didn't, because not being a physician. So I really appreciated that about her. Again, in that moment, I didn't necessarily appreciate it. It was like, no way, I know what I'm doing with my life. I'm going back to Kenya. I'm never living in the US. That sounds like the worst possible thing I could imagine. I'm happy doing what I'm doing in Kenya. But thankfully, she persisted. And as a Christian, I spent a lot of time praying about the direction that my life would go and really thinking about, okay, I definitely have a heart for serving people, for serving underserved people. But does that necessarily limit me to serving in a developing country? And so looking at where could my mission field be? Where are these underserved people? And I think what I came to realize was there's this huge group, as you at Let Them Live know so well, of underserved people, whether that be preborn children who don't have a voice for themselves, or the women that often find themselves in really desperate situations and living in a culture who has continued to affirm to them that abortion is the answer, even though it has failed them time and time again. And so that just led me on a journey of finding out more information. I actually got connected with Scott Klusendorf, was very blessed to have him mentor me actually through just pro-life philosophy and apologetics and all of that, and realized that this really was a mission field in and of itself that was deeply underserved. Lots of people understood going to Africa and working in rural Africa to help people there, which is a wonderful thing. I'm not knocking it. I miss it dearly. But not a lot of people understood coming back to the US to do this. And it was a little bit of an uphill battle at first and wasn't really sure what that was going to look like. But then I got introduced to the amazing Dr. Donna Harrison, who was my immediate predecessor here at AAPLOG, and got involved with AAPLOG, and the rest is history. So I moved back to the States in 2014, and the last almost 10 years, it's crazy that it's been that long, but has been a little bit of a wild ride. So yeah.
That's amazing. I know I the other day I was like, gosh, it is almost 2024, which means it's been almost 10 years since 2014.
Yeah.
Absolutely nuts. And quick shout out for Dr. Harrison. She is so amazing. She gave the best interview, and I'm totally going off topic here, but she was featured in a documentary about the abortion pill and its effects. And literally something that she said has just stuck with me forever. There's all these people talking about coat hanger abortions. We don't want to go back to that, but she's like, we're already back to that because the abortion pill is the chemical coat hanger. And I was like, boom. That is it right there. She was so on it. So she's amazing. Just total side note. But I think it's awesome too that you were able to connect with Scott and be mentored by him. And that's similar to my journey, where it's, okay, step one is to educate yourself about abortion and pro-life apologetics and see if that's something that you can really defend, because we can't defend our position, how are we going to fully support this cause? And something that I found really interesting, this is a weird segue, but when I was kind of learning about the pro-life movement, I was still very interested in like the medical field and all of that. And so did a lot of research into the Hippocratic Oath, which is not, maybe you can talk a little bit about this because I'm not sure kind of the status of it, but it doesn't seem to be something that people like doctors live by anymore, but it's very straightforward about life and protecting life. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. And that the original Hippocratic Oath, which probably a lot of people have heard of, it really formed the basis of medical ethics for the last 2000 years plus. And the original Hippocratic Oath expressly forbids the intentional killing of our patients, both through abortion and through assisted suicide at the end of life. And even 2000 years ago, Hippocrates recognized that those had no place in the role of medicine. I think the interesting thing that maybe not a lot of people know is that Hippocrates wasn't even necessarily saying that abortion was something that shouldn't be done. He just was acknowledging that it didn't have a place in the profession of medicine, that medicine was supposed to be set apart, that our job as physicians was to be healers, not to be killers. And so in Hippocrates' time, whether a healer would kill you or heal you actually depended on who paid them the most money. If somebody who wanted you dead came to that healer and paid more than you paid to be healed, then they might give you a poison or something like that to end your life. And so Hippocrates was really trying to help develop the profession, the vocation of medicine, and have that be set apart as something that was meant for healing, not for harm. And so he said, basically, people can go on and do abortions, but that should not be a part of medicine because it's not consistent with what medicine is supposed to do, which is to restore and preserve the health of our patients. And so that's really where the oath came from. And for hundreds of years, actually, physicians took that oath as a part of stepping into this vocation, stepping into this profession, committed themselves to the tenets of that oath. And unfortunately, now many schools, many medical schools don't even have their medical students take an oath, or if they do, it's a very altered version of the oath that now consists of a lot of claims of social justice and things like that, and have completely taken out really the most essential component, which was we don't kill our patients. It's a crass way of saying it, but that's essentially what the oath said, was we don't kill our patients. We will never intentionally do that, whether it be at the beginning of their lives or at the end of their lives. And so that's a big part of what AAPLOG is trying to do. And there are other organizations, medical organizations as well, that we partner with that are trying to do the same thing. We're trying to restore the practice of Hippocratic medicine for our patients' sake and for the sake of our profession.
Yeah, and you touched on the Hippocratic Oath was like, okay, we don't kill our patients. And as an OBGYN, your patients, plural, it's not just the woman, it's not just these women that you're seeing, it's also the child that they're carrying. That's also your patient. And I think that's something that gets missed a lot. And it blows my mind that there's even programs, like medical programs, training people to be abortionists. What are your thoughts on that?
It's really an awful turn that medicine has taken, in that now under OBGYN, there's a recognized subspecialty called complex family planning, which we fought the approval of that subspecialty because, of course, it's a euphemistic term. Essentially, what that training does is trains people in second and third trimester abortion procedures, which we know are not necessary for the life of women, to save women's lives. And we know that these later abortion procedures actually carry significant risks for women, not to mention the fact that they typically actively dismember a living, pain-capable fetal human being. And of course, this is a barbaric procedure. But in addition to the harm that it then does to our preborn patient, it also carries significant harms and risks for the women who experience these abortions. We know that the later in pregnancy an abortion is done, the higher the risk of dying for a woman. In fact, at about 18 to 20 weeks of pregnancy, the risk of dying from an abortion after that point is greater than the risk of dying from a normal delivery. We also know that the later in pregnancy abortions are done, the higher the risk of adverse mental health outcomes for women, as well as the higher the risk of preterm birth and future pregnancies, and the higher the risk of immediate adverse outcomes, such as uterine perforations, where a hole is poked in the uterus that can lead to her losing her uterus, can lead to life-threatening bleeding, the higher the risk of hemorrhage. In fact, there was a study that came out recently calling for earlier screenings in pregnancy for fetal anomalies because of the risks of abortions later in pregnancy. So the authors of this study were definitely not pro-life, but they recognized the significant increase in risk in abortions done later in pregnancy. And so the fact that we've now committed an entire subspecialty under the field of OBGYN, a field that is meant to take care of two patients, like we were saying, the maternal patient and the fetal patient. We're the only specialty in medicine that cares for two patients simultaneously. And so the fact that our specialty has now approved a subspecialty that is solely focused on ending the life of one of our patients is just a travesty and really slipped in under the radar. Most OBGYNs didn't even know that this subspecialty was getting approved.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know it was like a full actual thing. And it's so sad to think about. And I'm really glad that you touched on some of the risks associated with abortion, especially later term, because I think that it's something that needs to be talked about. Okay, there are risks with abortion, but unlike other surgical procedures where you go and maybe you're having knee surgery or whatever, you're given a rundown by the doctor. Here's what can happen, right? That's not happening with abortion. And what I love about AAPLOG, and this will transition me into my next kind of question to talk about AAPLOG and everything that you guys do and all the amazing stuff you do. But I know one thing that you have that I've used before are just amazing resources about statistics regarding emotional, mental, physical complications from abortions. And one of the things that stuck out to me so much was the link between abortion and breast cancer. And so many people that are pro-abortion, they'll say there is no proven link, there's nothing like that. But the reality is that whether it's a an intentional abortion or like a miscarriage, for example, that a woman has. I can't remember the exact times. Maybe you can talk to this more, but there is a risk, an increased risk for breast cancer. So it's not an attack on abortion. It's just reality that intentionally ending your pregnancy is going to, and not even when miscarriages happen, when your pregnancy is ended before you give birth, like there are risk factors for breast cancer. That's a risk factor. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that and then maybe expand on more of what you guys are doing at AAPLOG and all the amazing stuff you're doing.
Yeah, I think there's a few things to touch on. The first is that one of our main missions as an organization is that we believe that even if our patients make the choice to have an induced abortion, which of course we hope that they don't make that choice, but even if they do, we believe that they deserve fully informed consent. And as you said, our job as physicians, when we talk about any potential procedure or medication that a woman may take, our job is to talk about the risks, benefits, and alternatives of that proposed treatment, as well as only recommending things to our patients that we feel will improve their health, not be detrimental to them. And as you said, many other surgeries, we talk about the risks, but ultimately the reason we're recommending it is because we believe in our expert medical opinion that the ultimate benefit to the patient is going to outweigh those risks. That is not the case for induced abortion. One of the things that we do is provide resources for physicians and other medical professionals to be able to provide fully informed consent to women. We believe that women are very intelligent, strong creatures who can make good decisions for their health when they're given all of the information that we have. And unfortunately, that doesn't, as you said, doesn't typically happen in abortion facilities. They're not typically given all of that information. Specifically on the abortion breast cancer link, as you said, there are physiologic explanations for why we see an increased risk of breast cancer after some abortions. So I think it's important for people to understand it's not all abortions that we're talking about, but specifically abortions that happen before a woman has her first full-term pregnancy or carries her first pregnancy to term. Those abortions, we know, increase her risk of breast cancer. And again, there's a physiologic explanation for it. It's because when you prematurely end a pregnancy, whether that be through abortion, whether it be through a second trimester miscarriage. So we don't see this increased risk with first trimester miscarriages, but with second and third trimester losses prior to 32 weeks, when you prematurely end a pregnancy, you arrest a woman's breast tissue in what we call a proliferative state, meaning that breast tissue has multiplied, but it hasn't yet matured. That doesn't happen until after 32 weeks of pregnancy and then goes through further maturation when a woman breastfeeds. When it matures, it then goes into a very cancer-resistant state, which is why we've known for decades in medicine that women who have babies, the more babies they have, and women who breastfeed have a much lower risk of breast cancer because they've fully matured their breast tissue into that cancer-resistant tissue. But what happens early in pregnancy is that a woman's breast tissue starts to proliferate or multiply, which is why women get breast tenderness early in pregnancy. But it's multiplying again with very immature, very cancer susceptible tissue. And at 32 weeks, a woman's body starts making something called human placental lactogen, which then induces the maturation of that tissue into milk producing tissue. And that is very cancer resistant. And so not only does an abortion prior to a first full-term pregnancy increase a woman's risk because it arrests her breast tissue in that immature, cancer-susceptible state, but the more abortions a woman has prior to a first full-term pregnancy, the higher her risk of breast cancer, again, because you just get more of that cancer-susceptible tissue. And so that's important.
Better than me.
No, I've explained it. I've had to explain it a few times, so it's okay. I think it's important for people to understand, though, because actually when I first heard about this connection, I thought that, it might be something that pro-lifers are grabbing onto to just have another risk, because I'd never learned about it in my training. And I thought, if this is really the case, why did I never learn about it then in my training? But actually, when you go and you study the physiology of breast development, especially, and its maturation through pregnancy, it makes sense. And it's consistent with all of the other risk factors that we screen women with when we're screening them for their risk of breast cancer. And we also see that this increased risk of breast cancer from abortions is exaggerated in women who have a family history of breast cancer. So all of this should be playing into informed consent for women when they're considering an abortion procedure.
And informed consent is so huge, right? There's people that really feel like women should be making their own decisions. Okay, they need to have all the information. That's step one. So what is AAPLOG doing? And maybe just give a rundown of, because I know you guys advocate for informed consent. I know you guys advocate for so many things. You're advocating for the mom and her baby. Tell me a little bit about what you guys do, what you've been up to, and like just everything. AAPLOG is an amazing organization that is so necessary. So take the time to just share what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Emily. Sometimes I feel like it's hard to fully describe everything that we're doing because there is a lot, especially since Roe was overturned. There's a lot that we're doing. I think, so just an overview of who we are as an organization. We are a professional, non-sectarian medical organization that represents over 7,000 medical professionals, largely OBGYNs, but also other physicians, family medicine physicians, and then a variety of specialties, emergency medicine, surgeons, even anesthesiologists, but also non-physicians in the medical field. So midwives, mental health professionals, nurses, PAs. So any medical professional who is caring for pregnant women and desires to practice life-affirming medicine is welcome to be a part of AAPLOG. We also have organizational members that are providing medical interventions for pregnant women, like pregnancy centers that are medical, are also welcome to join as organizational members. So primarily we exist to represent our membership in helping support their pro-life practice with the evidence that they need to provide evidence-based care to their patients. We also are there to support their right of conscience, their right to practice that pro-life medicine, their right to say, I do not want to provide or refer for any procedures that are harmful for my patients. And we know that is under significant attack. And we also act as a second medical opinion on their behalf and in their defense, whether that be in the courts, in the state legislatures, or even within medical bodies like the American College of OBGYNs, who has become so pro-abortion and anti-conscience rights, actually. And we recently had an emergency medicine physician approach us and say, can we start an emergency medicine subsection at AAPLOG? Because our professional body has become now so pro-abortion and so antagonistic towards anyone who will not provide abortions. And we really have become this umbrella organization because we aren't religious. Anyone of any faith or no faith is welcome to join as long as they are committed to practicing, again, Hippocratic medicine. If I had to put into buckets what we do, 3 big buckets of what we do would be research, membership, and then advocacy or education. So we do a couple different kinds of research. We support original research into topics related to the life issue and have been able to help support that research to move forward, which we're really excited about. But the other big piece that our research team does is compiling all of the research that's out there into digestible formats. And so we have practice guidelines, committee opinions, position statements that are done on a variety of topics that are available on our website for free, even to the public. They are geared towards medical professionals, but I know a lot of people in the public use them as well. And what it does, for instance, it takes the 160 studies that have shown a relationship between abortion and preterm birth and boils it down into a digestible document. But not only do we look at the studies that support the pro-life position, we look at the studies that say there's no link between abortion and preterm birth. There's not very many of those out there, but we look at those, honestly evaluate those, and take those into account as well. And we do that, again, on a number of topics. We also, again, through membership, we support our members. We're there as a support to them when they can't have their own voice in the courts or in their state legislatures. We're there to help be that voice for them, but also to equip them to use the knowledge that they already have. And so we also provide networking opportunities for our members. One of the greatest networking opportunities, and Emily, I know this probably has a special place in your heart too, because you were a part of this conference for many years, is our national conference that we have every year that brings together hundreds of medical professionals and amazing speakers where they get to hear the latest updates. I'm so excited about our one that's coming up in February. We've got updates on fetal surgery. We've got updates on abortion pill reversal. We've got updates on progesterone use in general in pregnancy, as well as some really, I think, sort of big hitter speakers. We've got Katie Faust as one of our keynote speakers. Charlie Camosi is one of our keynote speakers, and Dr. Kristen Collier is going to be there speaking as well. So a lot of what we do is providing encouragement to physicians and to upcoming medical professionals through our scholarship program for students. They can attend the conference. And that's been, for me, being involved with AAPLOG, one of the neatest things that I've been able to see is how we encourage the next generation of medical professionals. They feel so alone, so isolated. So many of the students tell us through AAPLOG, that's a safe venue where they can have a voice on this issue and where they can interact with other students, other practicing medical professionals. I had one recently tell me I was out in Colorado doing some speaking events out there with some of our members. And I had two young medical students come up to me, both of whom said that they had always wanted to practice OB, but they recently had really been thinking that there was no way they could do it because of how much pressure there is applied to medical students and residents now to participate in abortions. And they just didn't want to ever be in a position where they had to violate their conscience, their morals. And they thought there was no way they could still do OB. And they came up to me, and this just made me cry because they said, now that we know that AAPLOG exists, now we know that we can do this. Now we know we can do what we've always wanted to do with our lives. And it was so amazing. I just thought that ultimately, if I had to boil down why AAPLOG exists, honestly, that's why we exist, because then they will go on to take care of their patients in the future. And then we do a lot of advocacy and education of the public, education of policymakers, so that they can understand that the views that they're hearing from ACOG that says that abortion should be available through all 9 months of pregnancy with no restrictions, no regulations, no barriers, that is not representative of how most of us practice medicine. It's not representative of good medicine, as evidenced by the fact that we know that anywhere between 86 and 93% of OBGYNs do not perform abortions. 74 and 93%. If you look at all the surveys. So still, at the very most, a quarter of OBGYNs, that's an academic practice, are doing induced abortions. And so the vast majority of OBs are not doing it. We would all be doing it if we thought that it was good for our patients, but we understand that it's not. And so it's important for policymakers, especially in this post-Roe world and where we're fighting this battle on all 50 fronts. It's especially important for policymakers to understand women do not need this for their health, for their lives. They don't need induced abortion. And it's important for them to understand the importance of what you all are doing, which is, it's so interesting. I think there was a quote from one of the physicians who helped found ACOG, where he said that abortion is a medical attempt at fixing a social problem. And those of us in medicine, we interact with social needs a lot, but ultimately that is not our job as physicians. I'm not saying we should ignore the social needs of our patients, because that does play into their health. But ultimately our job as physicians, again, is to protect and preserve the health of our patients through medical interventions. Now, what we can do, though, to help support the social needs of our patients is get them in touch with organizations like Let Them Live that are going to address those social needs. But I think one of the biggest problems that we see in medicine right now is medicine is chasing these perceived social fixes to problems out there. And that's not, again, it's not our job as physicians. We need to stick to what it is that we're supposed to do, and then partner with amazing groups or partner with policymakers to then improve the social supports for our patients, which again, ultimately will impact their health.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, which I guess I hadn't really thought about before, was we've got these social problems, right? We've got these rooted things that are happening in poverty and fatherlessness and all of these things, which are the root of that. And somehow we've decided that abortion, right, in the medical field is the solution, but it's totally not. And I love that you touched on like partnership. I know that we've worked with you guys in the past because we've had women come to us, and this kind of ties into a little bit of what you said about abortion and its necessity, right? As it's said that women need abortion to save their lives. But we have had women that came to us and they're like, the doctors are advising me to abort because of health reasons. And we're like, get a second opinion, and we connect them. We go, I know you guys have an online directory of pro-life doctors all across the country. And we connect them with a doctor, or just even to say like, look, I don't know your exact situation, but tell me what your doctor said. Let me give you some advice. There's second opinions because women are just being told by their doctors, oh, just have an abortion. It seems like a lazy way to be a doctor in a way. I don't really want to deal with your problems. I don't want to actually take the time to help you and your child and help figure it out. So just have an abortion. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? The kind of life of the mother situations that pop up?
Yeah, I think it's important when we discuss this issue to understand when we talk about abortion, what are we talking about? So the only intent of an induced abortion is to end the life of the fetal human being. And that's not just me saying it. That's the CDC definition of abortion. It's the definition of abortion from the Royal College of OBGYNs, which is the UK professional medical organization for OB. That's the intent of an abortion. When we intervene, when a woman's life truly is in danger from a pregnancy complication, and we don't have any other choice other than to separate her and her baby because of that complication, our intent in that is to save her life. It's not to end the life of that child. And the way we can know that is because typically the way that most of us intervene to do that, what we call a maternal fetal separation, we do it in a way that if that pregnancy is far enough along, that baby can survive. So we deliver baby, we take care of mom, we take care of baby. Sometimes that has to happen before the point of viability, before baby can survive outside of mom. But we still do it in such a way as to preserve the possibility that, let's say we're delivering her at 21 weeks and we deliver and baby comes out bigger than we expected and a little bit more developed than we expected, which I've had happen. Then you've done that delivery in a way that now you call NICU and they're there right away and they can come and they can evaluate that baby. So that is a very different situation than induced abortion. So one, I think it's important that we understand the difference, and probably most of the people listening to your podcast get that, but I think it's important to point that out. So I agree. I think for women, if they are being seen as an outpatient and they're being sent to an abortion facility for an abortion because they need it to save their lives, I would automatically get a second opinion if I was that patient, because abortion facilities don't have relationships with patients. And so if a woman is truly in a life-threatening situation, an abortion facility is not the place for her to be taken care of. A hospital is the place for her to be taken care of. And if she's being sent by her physician to a Planned Parenthood for an abortion because she's got supposedly a threat to her life, absolutely the right thing for her to do is to get a second opinion. Yeah, she needs to see somebody who she can trust.
It's just crazy to me. Don't go to the hospital. It'd be like if you I don't know, broke your arm and instead of going to the ER, you're like, let's just go, we'll just take care of it later. Let's just wait until you broke your arm on a Saturday and you wait to go to the doctor's office on Monday. It's no, like you go to the emergency
or
room.
to like some random facility that doesn't even necessarily specialize in the issue that you're facing. And I think to your earlier point too, I agree with you, Emily. It is lazy care. So if I have a woman sitting in front of me who is contemplating abortion for whatever reason, whether it be because someone's told her she has a potentially life-threatening situation, which I've had someone tell me that when she had thyroid disease, that she was sent for an abortion because her pregnancy was going to kill her because she had thyroid disease. Guess what? She just needed her thyroid disease figured out and treated.
I have thyroid disease.
100% manageable. I could not believe it. I felt so bad for this woman. She had gone through with the abortion. I was actually seeing her for a post-abortion complication. And my heart just broke for her. She did not want an abortion. She felt like she had to go get an abortion because that's what a doctor had told her. So whether it be that kind of a situation or a situation where she's simply in a crisis scenario, many of the women that you care for, where they just don't know what to do. They're pregnant. They don't know how they're possibly going to take care of this baby. And so they're in a crisis situation. The really fast thing for me to do, it take me 30 seconds, is to give her the number and the location of the closest abortion facility for her to go get her abortion. The harder thing to do is to sit down with her and figure out what's going on. Why is it that she feels like abortion is the right option or the only option for her? And what is it that we can do to address some of those concerns that she has? That takes a lot longer, but guess what? It makes a lot longer impact on her life in a positive way. Not only have we not given her the trauma of an abortion, physical and mental, but also we've address some of these root causes. If she goes and gets an abortion, those root causes haven't changed. They're still there. And no one has addressed any of that. And so you're right. It is a lazy way to practice medicine to send women for abortions. And again, if she truly is facing a life-threatening complication, she needs to be cared for by doctors like me, like my partners who have experience in managing complex pregnancies. And sometimes we do have to come to that heart-wrenching decision that we have to end your pregnancy. We have to deliver you early because we just don't have any treatment options available to us other than that. But in that situation, that is not the same thing as an abortion. We are able to give her a child that she can hold and grieve. And again, that is not being done in abortion facilities. It's being done in a hospital where we have the ability to take care of her.
With an abortion, there is no chance for that child. There is none. It's zero. And so that makes a huge difference. And I'm glad we touched on that because surprisingly lately, and I think all pro-life people need to hear this. So this is for you guys. This is on the podcast. There are so many pro-life people I know that are like, oh, but there's an exception for the life of the mother. And so I think they just really need to hear this. Like pro-lifers really need to hear this, that there really is no reason for abortion. It's for the life of the mother. There's no, let's just have that abortion. So I think a lot of pro-life people need to hear that in order to understand. So I'm grateful that you explained that. And I'm grateful that there are so many doctors out there willing to give that second opinion. And I think every doctor should join AAPLOG. I really do. I think it's an amazing, you guys are educating people. You guys are just really providing that information, true information that is current misinformation or is just not even there for women. And so I would just encourage anyone who's watching this to research. It's AAPLOG.org. So AAPLOG.org. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your website, like how can doctors join, learn more, get involved, donate, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important for more than just medical professionals to be hearing this. Like I said, the resources on our website are available to the general public. And while they're geared towards medical professionals, many of them are written in a way that a non-medical person could understand and be able to really use the information that's out there. The other thing that I think is important for the general public to understand is if AAPLOG doesn't exist, it is a very real possibility that when you need a pro-life OBGYN, you will not be able to find one. And so I know that if you are going to be pregnant, or maybe your wife or your sister or your daughter, you want them to have a physician who is going to fight for both them and their child, even when circumstances are very difficult. And so it's important that the general public support AAPLOG because yes, we're primarily there for our medical members, but we are there also to ensure that you can find a pro-life physician in the future when you need to find one. And as you alluded to, Emily, it's so important. We are doing a lot with a pretty small budget, actually, as I know you guys are as well. And if somebody cares very deeply about preserving pro-life medicine, about preserving and making it possible for this next generation of medical professionals that are coming up through school, to make it possible for them to be able to hang on to their pro-life convictions through medical school, through residency, and then into practice, we need your support. So if you're a medical professional, we absolutely need you to become a dues-paying member. One, we can't exist without your dues. They're actually pretty cheap when you compare them to other medical organizations, and we can't do what we do without you. Also, by being a member, you get protected when we get wins within the court. For instance, we sued the Obama administration over their changing to the EMTALA regulations that would force emergency rooms to become abortion facilities. We got a preliminary injunction, but the only people that are protected are people who are our members and members of the other organizations that also sued the administration. And so that's why it's important to be, that's another reason why it's important to be a member. But also for the general public, we need your support to be able to continue to get this information into the hands of medical professionals, many of whom do not know that this evidence exists. And so we need to be able to get it into their hands so that when you go to see your doctor, they are treating you with evidence-based medicine that honors your life and the life of your preborn child. And so if somebody's interested in donating, they can go to AAPLOG tirelessly.org/donate to be able to donate either to our general fund, or they can donate to support our student scholarships that help medical students and residents be able to attend our conference. And then we have all kinds of resources, like you said, on our website. We do a weekly podcast now that covers a lot of sort of intricacies of pro-life medicine, some of the difficult issues that we have to deal with. And you can access that. You can access several videos that we've done. You can access our resources on abortion pill reversal. We just have many resources that are available there, but I can't overemphasize the importance of people being involved with this. I think for a lot of people, they think, oh, they're doctors. Like, why would I need to support them financially? And I get it. I really do. But this isn't just about the doctors that are our members. It's about ensuring that every woman in this country has access to pro-life medicine. And that's only going to happen if we continue to defend the practice of pro-life medicine.
Yes. And I can say for a fact, Let Them Live, many other organizations, we've used your resources. We need your resources. Like, we can't do this because I'm not a doctor. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the training. This is something that I can't do. But what I can do is donate. What I can do is raise awareness. So anyone listening, what you can do is you can support AAPLOG. You can join, you can donate, you can share, go to their social media. It's honestly amazing. And you're right. Like, we really need this. Like, we really need AAPLOG. We need women to have that resource, and we need doctors, up and coming doctors, to know that they have a space, and we need more pro-life doctors. And that's the way that we're going to do it. So if you guys are watching, please go to aaplog.org and donate and learn more and give and all that good stuff. And I just want to thank you again so much, Christina, for being on the podcast. And it's great to catch up with you. And I feel like we could just keep talking because there's so much to cover, but we'll have to have a part 2, I think.
There you go. There you go. And we are definitely going to have you on our podcast, because I think just to give a plug to what you all are doing. I have sent patients your way who were contemplating abortion, and it was purely because they just needed those social supports. And so I think it's really important that doctors know that your organization exists too, to be able to refer patients to. So I'm happy to come on and do a part 2, and we definitely have to have you on our podcast too. So.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you again for being on, and I hope you have an awesome day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Let Them Live podcast. I would like to give a special shout out to Patrick at Moon Shadow Studios, who does an amazing job of editing our podcast. If you're ever in the need for a podcast editor, he is definitely the one to go to. Let Them Live is a Christian nonprofit dedicated to supporting women who are considering abortion, primarily due to financial burden. 73% of women have abortions because of financial struggles, and we're here to help bridge that gap. Our goal is to provide the emotional and financial support these women need to feel empowered to choose life. If our cause resonates with you and you're interested in learning more, getting involved, or making a donation, please visit our website at www.letthemlive.org. One amazing way to contribute is by joining our Heartbeat Club, where you can become a monthly donor, and your ongoing support will ensure that we can continue helping women every single month. You can also follow us on social media to stay up to date with all the amazing stories and ways that you can be part of our mission. You can also find me on Instagram at Emily Burning. Thank you again for listening, and please join us for more upcoming inspiring stories and conversations.